I've been asked a couple of times recently how I get a dreamlike look in my photos, and that's what I wanted to take you through in this video so that you can apply the same to yours. Now, like in any kind of photography, there are two main parts to this: taking the right photo and then editing it. The editing is really simple. I'm going to come on to that later, but there are a couple of steps that I've started adding it at the end that I think make the real difference. Now, when you see a lot of videos about dreamy photos, they often talk about soft golden light, and softness is a key element to those images. And whilst I don't disagree with that, I don't think you need to just do this in golden light. I think dreamy photos can be taken in all kinds of conditions. If you think about your dreams, certainly if I think about my dreams, they're not all sweetness and light. Some of them are darker, moodier, and invoke more of an emotion, like the abject fear most of us experience on a daily basis. Dreamy literally means something from a dream. But as well as softness, dreamy often brings into my mind things like liminal spaces, ethereal looking places, maybe places that are desolate, vacant, or slightly otherworldly. Dreams feel fuzzy and imperfect, and that needs to translate into the photos instead of going along with this sharpness obsession which seems to have taken hold over recent years. Dreamy can be anything you want it to be, and I think that the fact that there are no rules to this are what makes it such a cool way of shooting. It's very anti-perfectionist, which I like. And if you want to shoot in this way, you probably want to try the following. The first thing I want to outline is to experiment. Whenever you're out with your camera, try new things out, try out different techniques, try out shooting in different places. And it's that experimentation that will probably lead to some of your better images. That's certainly what I've found over the last couple of years. Now, taking of the photos is broken down into three areas, which is the kit, the technique, and the time. So firstly, kit and your camera, and whatever camera you use, it doesn't matter. You can literally use anything for this. What is more important is probably the type of lens you put on your camera. Modern lenses are almost too good. They resolve images really well, they're really sharp, and those are the kind of things that make an image look real rather than dreamy. I've been experimenting with some lenses recently with a bit more character to them, like the Voigtlander Nocton 40, the Helios 44-2, and anamorphic lenses as well. These add a bit more character, a bit more softness, and adds to that dreamlike feel that we're trying to create. If you have got more modern lenses, there are things you can do to add to that character and soften the images. Something I love to use is a glow mist filter. This is a black diffusion 1/8. These come in different strengths, and again, experiment with the different strengths. I've also got a 1/4 one of these on my Fujifilm camera, and sometimes that feels too much and an 1/8 feels about right. What a glow mist filter does, it adds glow to the highlights, it can add bits of halation as well, and it creates a softer look. It's not going to do everything to make your image dreamlike, but it certainly helps. I'm using one right now to film this. So if you look at this light up here, this is with the glow mist filter on, and that is with it off. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, I think the feeling of nostalgia and the imperfections and the halation and glow that you can get from using film is also a good thing to experiment with if you've got a film camera and if you can afford it. Now, when a lot of people talk about creating dreamy images, they often concentrate on lower apertures and slower shutter speeds and things like that to create the images. I'm not too fussed about this. I do often use lower apertures, but it's not the main kind of technique I use. Most of what I focus on to get dreamy images is my composition. I think dreamy photos to me need a lot of space, so composition really matters when it comes to this. I'd also say don't worry about shooting at high ISO and shoot handheld for that added flexibility. Softness, as I say, helps with dreamy images, so shooting at high ISO, introducing a bit of grain isn't going to do any harm whatsoever. Now, the third thing is time, and I suppose timing as well. If you want that softness in the images, you are going to have to shoot at a time of day when the light is softer, like in golden hour. But it doesn't have to be as restrictive as this. Shooting in the midday sun is difficult because it is very harsh, but you can soften that harshness with a filter, as I explained. Winter is quite a good time to experiment with this because the sun sits lower in the sky and the light is often not quite as harsh as in the summer. Something I do like to do to create this effect is shoot into the light. But it doesn't just have to be sunlight that you consider for this. It can be reflected light, it can be artificial light, and artificial light is something I've really embraced with this over the last couple of years. I think shooting into artificial light, especially when you use a mist filter, can really help to create that dreamy look. Then when you add in weather conditions like fog, mist, rain even, that can accentuate it even further. So you got your photos. What about the edit? Well, I'm going to go over to my computer and show you what I do. Now, I've mentioned softness, I don't know how many times in this video, but that is basically what I'm trying to do in the edit as well. So the first couple of things I do after I've edited the image as I normally would is reduce the clarity slightly and slightly pull the dehaze down as well. Now, since the start of this year, I've actually been using Luminar Neo in conjunction with Lightroom, because Luminar Neo's got a load of really cool tools in it, and that allows me to achieve things that I cannot do with Lightroom alone. One of those things is to add glow to an image, which basically is the same as using a mist filter. The benefit is if you use one of these, the effect it has bakes into the image. There's no removing that later if that's what you want to do. Doing it with Luminar allows you to add it in and take it away as you wish. And that's one of the uses I'm going to show you, and a few other little things as well. So what I'd do is I'd take my image into Luminar by right-clicking, going to editing and taking it to Luminar Neo. So I've got my image now in Luminar Neo and it's looking quite good. But what I want to do is accentuate the lights, and particularly the glow around these street lights here. So what I will do is, there's all these tools down the right hand side, and so many of these are really cool and need experimentation as I outlined earlier. But the first one I'm going to look at is glow here, and there's different types of glow you can apply. I'm just going to go for standard glow, and if I kind of turn that up like that, you can see the difference it makes. It is quite subtle, and some of them are more subtle than others, and it really depends on the image you use. Maybe I'll be better with like an autumn effect and see what that does. So you see that has a much bigger difference, so I want to pull that down quite a lot, and that's more the type of glow I want to go for. The other effect I applied to this image was the mystical look, and this kind of adds glow but also contrast as well. I think that's the best way of describing it, but it's like a soft contrast. So if I turn that on and off, you can see it's really accentuated the glow, but it's darkened down those areas at the top and bottom, which I think focuses your attention in the middle of the image. So that is two changes. It's mystical and glow, and it's taking the image from that to that, which is a significant difference. It really adds to that dreamy effect, and it's taken me no time at all. The next image I'm going to edit is this one that's shot towards the sun and is quite contrasty. But before I do that, I just want to thank Skylum, who make Luminar Neo, for sponsoring this video. As I said, I've used it for quite a while, way before this sponsorship opportunity came about. It is something that genuinely has a place in my workflow. As you'd expect, they've got some amazing Black Friday offers on at the moment. They're linked below, and I'll talk about them a bit more after I've edited this image. Obviously, this has already had some Lightroom edits done on it, but I want to accentuate this light and make that glow a bit more. So the first tool I'll use here is Magic Light, and I need to turn the intensity up to access the brush size. And I think the sun is probably about there. So I'll put that on, and then if I mess with the intensity here, you can see it's really glowing off those buildings at the bottom. Now, I find that a little bit distracting, so I'll probably take those sunbeams out and have it a bit like that. I'll probably turn the glow up a bit, but then lower the intensity. I think you can see what the effect is doing by putting the intensity up really high, but once you've kind of adjusted things like the beams, lower that down, because I think with these kind of things, less is more. So that's given those bright bits that subtle glow. The next thing I want to do is not that, but I want to add more glow. So I'll go to glow, and I'll probably use the autumn effect as well, because this will not just add glow to the brighter bits, it will also soften it up around the kind of contrasty cityscape as well. So if I do that again, you can kind of see the intensity if you whack it all the way up. So I probably want it about there, and by clicking the eye, you can see the difference of turning that on and off. The final thing I want to do is just make that kind of bottom bit a little bit darker, just accentuate the glow slightly. I'll use the mystical one again, because that worked quite nicely in the last one. So Again, if the intensity is 100, I can bring it back down to there, and then I can mess with the shadow element, see if I want it brighter or darker. I kind of want it down there. That is a bit too much for me now. I think that's about it. Very subtle again. I wonder if the general autumn effect is a bit too much. So you can come back in to the edits you've already made. The autumn effect was under glow. And if I just knock that down a bit, I think that is a bit more where I want it. Once it's done, hit apply. And that is my more dreamy looking image. Now the changes are subtle, but that's how I like my images. I like the dreamy look to be fairly subtle. Like I say though, experiment with it, try other things out, and however you want your image to be, that is absolutely fine. That's the great thing about photography. You can experiment, and if it is what you want it to be, then that's all that matters. And Luminar Neo is really cool for experimentation because you can do a lot of really exciting stuff within the program. And I think there's been quite a lot of anti-Adobe sentiment online at the moment, specifically to do with price hikes. And the great thing about Luminar Neo is that it's currently on a Black Friday offer, and you're not locked into a subscription as well. It's actually up to 75% off, I think, until the 1st of December. So check out the links to it below. I'm obviously using it in conjunction with Lightroom, but it does work as a standalone editor as well. It's got cataloging, and you can manage all your images within it. And that, again, is something I'm experimenting with at the moment. So that's it. That is how I make my dreamy looking images. I think the key things to remember, again, are experimentation, different lenses, different filters, different types of editing, shooting in places that you wouldn't necessarily shoot in, like supermarket car parks on a freezing cold winter's night. Some of the best images are often in some of the most unexpected places. And if you can keep that mindset, then you will get the best out of your photography. Something else I really like doing is making images so that they feel like they're from a movie. And if you want to know a bit more about that, check out the video linked here.